And then I'm so lucky that in your move, so Greg's going to talk a little bit about what he's doing now, that we've stayed in a place where we can work together. So, Greg, talk a little bit about what you're doing now, and then we'll
Yeah.
jump into the session.
Well, thanks, Kathryn. Thanks for the invite and the kind words. I do consider you a dear friend, actually a mentor. You've taught me so much about your industry. I've always been in automotive most of my career. But learning about this industry under Kathryn has been so exciting. Again, the collaboration we did together when I was with JD Power on the EV Hub, world-class portal for businesses to go on to understand that transition from electrification or from ICE, internal combustion or diesel to electrification is looking out into the future, but it can be used currently and is such a great resource for businesses. So very quickly, my background again is very automotive centric. Prior to JD Power, I worked for General Motors. I think one of the things I've always been attracted to that plays into the presentation we're going to do today is I've been very close to customer data, voice of customer research, understanding buying behavior, the psychology behind that, and I think a lot of what we'll talk about does apply to the current state, but we're going to also look into the future a little bit and see what else we can uncover to intersect with buyers. So yeah, super excited. Recently, as of almost a month ago, I transitioned from JD Power into a company called Eccentric. Not many people in the US or North America have really heard of Eccentric yet. I was brought in to open up US operations along with a couple other really industry experts. But they are very, very large in the international markets. And so you can see some of the nameplates in the footer there. They have 3,600 dealers internationally. They are the build and price and configurator for Tata Motors, which owns 43% of the commercial vehicle market in India.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see some of the big numbers that they provide their clients, and we're gonna we've already have some U.S. Business verbally agreed to that we're going to launch into the U.S. that applies to this conversation to help marketplaces, to help OEMs, dealers, businesses to bring that experience closer to the customer. So,
And we're going to look at a little example of that, which is very exciting
yeah.
later. But we're going to start off with this concept of what the heck is a marketplace, right? I mean,
Mhm.
that is one of the most commonly used words today in the top five, I think, and it's a little bit broad. So, what's your definition, Greg?
I think it's anywhere where you're congregating a universe of people that are exchanging goods and services. So, we're gonna show some logos up on there, but this could be anyone from thank you. Car gurus, they get almost 30 million visits a month, people shopping for specific vehicles, right? New and used. But then there's also platforms like Shopify that allow businesses, small business, medium-sized business, to actually have a website, to have an e-commerce platform to sell anything from jewelry to apparel to sneakers to whatever. And then the crafting market, my gosh, Etsy gets 96 million customers a month on that site.
Wow.
That's astounding amount of eyeballs. But when we look at the giant and the elephant in the room, Amazon, and that's where we, and I'm not afraid to say this, I will steal shamelessly from them. They're the number one e-commerce platform in the world. They get 236 million customers a month to that platform. And if you look at their workforce, they almost hire or bring on as many psychologists as they do technologists. And so
Wow.
they understand that buying behavior very well. And I'm wearing the convoy hat and I put convoy on here, but honestly, when you look at what Kathryn's been able to do with Convoy, to have all the upfitting configurations, to have a very intelligent sort and algorithm behind her filtering and her inventory marketplace, which is continually getting refined. She is very close, if not with some of these big players in other verticals, but we're super excited about the future. Kathryn, I hope you and I we'll always be friends, but I hope we can always collaborate on different ideas and come up with stuff to help each other.
Well, one of the things that I just like to say is myself, okay, but mostly the industry, we're complicated, Greg. We're just complicated. So let's kind of look, though, at the broad benefits of what a marketplace provides, really following what you said. I mean, clearly convenience, right? I
Yeah.
mean, anywhere, you can be anywhere. And I have to say, timing is everything sometimes. And we launched Convoy in November of 2019, right? When we all stop and think about what happened, a few months later, and everybody had to go home. It was perfect timing for the industry so that people could find things. Literally just finding, not buying, just having a place, because a lot of dealers were actually closed or couldn't serve or whatever. Variety, you mentioned, you're right. We work really hard at offering not, everything. And that is a really important part of a marketplace. A marketplace shouldn't be based on giving somebody an advantage over somebody else just because they can pay more, right? The whole point is kind of democracy across the internet. It's making sure that the widest selection and the easiest way to find things, right? That's how I feel. I feel a true marketplace really is helping the customer. Now, how the customer's helped, that's interpreted a lot of different ways. Clearly being able to look at prices, having information. We talk to dealers all the time about how important it is to post their price. That's a toughie, by the way. Dealers are, it's like dragging people into the future, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think we have data now that proves that if you're not actually transparently pricing inventory, you're going to be at a measurable disadvantage. At a measurable disadvantage, right? Because
Yeah.
anymore, people aren't comfortable with that. They
Yeah.
just aren't. And then, of course, just visibility for everybody. And probably the word visibility is one of the key markers of what we're trying to accomplish, because it's been this, when you take our specific vertical, which is actually quite a bit bigger than most people know. When you look at the size of the commercial vehicle space, the industry, the actual new sales, and this is about a year and a half old, it may be actually greater now, but new sales is about 170 billion. Used sales is about 160 billion. And when you look at the life cycle of the entire vehicle, all the things that have to happen with insurance and financing and tires and maintenance and warranty, which are all unique to commercial, to businesses, it's over
Yeah.
$2 trillion. And so, I keep thinking about that whole ecosystem and how the lack of visibility creates extreme friction in helping the customer. And that's really what we're talking about today, is helping the customer, right? So talk to us a little bit about some of the current marketplace trends, would you please, Greg?
Yeah, thank you. You're spot on. And that last slide, all those key points, that'll stand the test of time. That you can go back 100 years ago, and those four pillars were in effect. And then 100 years from now, I truly believe those four pillars will stay the same. Human behavior is fairly predictable.
Right.
What I will say, so on this slide here, I know this is not related to commercial trucks or automotive, but I thought it was a good way to, again, steal shamelessly from a psychological trigger that Amazon input. And so when you look at anything on Amazon, really, and in this example, I have a computer monitor, they very intelligently and strategically put things that are frequently bought together along with that product of interest, right? When you look at their financial statements, those frequently bought together items account for about 30% of their e-commerce platform.
Wow.
If you go upstairs in my house right now and look at my front doorstep, my wife does this.
She's part of that 30%, huh?
She is definitely part of that 30%. And so Amazon, and again, this wasn't this wasn't rocket scientist, but it was driven by data.
Right.
Kathryn, I hope I can get some time for you to share a story where you use data to help a dealer. I love the story that you've told me in the past. But this is an example of just intelligence over time and understanding consumer buying behavior and talking to customers and understanding that if you bundle, if you configure, if you offer, even just display and render things that go hand in hand, it makes sense. Go back to the previous slide real quick. The other thing Amazon is now testing, and they're calling it Rufus, and I don't know what the acronym stands for. I just like the name. I had a dog named Rufus one time. But they have some intelligent FAQs inherently built in right underneath the product image. And this is on pretty much every, whether you're buying a golf club or a gasket for your carburetor. They have questions that are AI driven, meaning they're learning from what customers are inquiring in reviews and ratings, and then serving those up in a way that the customer can get more information on that product right away. And the whole motivation and goal behind that, as we all know, is to get that customer to buy that computer monitor. And
Right.
these two things alone, these little psychological, I'll call them tricks, are just brilliant in the sense of marketing and to get people to convert into a sale of that monitor. So
So,
yeah,
so,
thanks.
so let's talk a minute about how different the audience is,
Mhm.
because in some ways they're not very different. In some ways
Right.
they are very different.
Yeah.
And so definitely psychology is the same, you
Yeah.
know, making it convenient, putting things together that are, going to save time and that all of that. But what's really cool about the commercial market is that it's B2B.
Mhm.
And why I love B2B is consumers are driven by many more facets of decision making that are not apparent all the time. So it's
Right.
true, lots and lots of data trying to figure it out, and maybe the word trick is fine. But for businesses, I agree. We need to get better and better at learning what they need, and I think that that's the big difference, what they want
Yeah.
and what they need. And that doesn't mean that businesses don't want to be treated a certain way, because there's still people that are doing the work.
Yeah.
But they're going to do some measuring on return on investment. They're
Yeah.
making a purchase decision based upon a very specific business goal
That's right.
and outcome that they need to have.
Yeah.
The more we can model the use of data around how to support that and make that easier,
Right.
that's the goal on the commercial side. And so, I really love that, there's all this happening. It clearly makes it obvious that it's doable. Of course, you have to, in some places, you have to have the resources of Amazon, right? But still,
Sure.
it's a great model. And I will tell the story because it is the day of proof for me. We started I started publishing Ford Pros magazine in 2007, but in nine or so, I realized that this industry didn't have the data, didn't have any data. Not only
Yeah.
did it not have data to help with decision making, it literally wasn't keeping track of what the product became. The VIN was assigned, but no one kept track of what that vehicle became. Did it become a dump truck? Did it become a flatbed? Did it become an ambulance, a fire truck, whatever? I mean, I still just kind of go, and still we're the only company that in the universe that actually tracks that all the way to through the configuration. But here's the first time that our very first dealership was Corning Ford, and we launched them in December of 2012. And I remember in March or April, right around this time of year, I called the general manager over there who was managing the commercial department. And I said, Francis, have you ever stocked a dump truck? And he said, I've been in this business for 25 years. It's now been more. And I've never sold a dump truck. And I said, well, Francis, that's not what I asked you. I asked you if you'd ever stocked one. And he said, no. And I go, well, our little wireframe carousel at the top where customers can see, the concept of what they're looking for. second and third most frequently upfit final vehicle that's been clicked is a dump truck.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, he ordered one, he stocked it, he sold it in under 10 days. And I track him now. Like literally, this is something that has become now a big part, not the only part of his business, but I just love that because, they are highly profitable vehicles. I'm not going to say what that number is, but very highly profitable. And to help people understand what's going on in the market and to meet the market needs, you got to have data. And that's something that we've really worked at. And so we've collected and collected and collected. And now it's time to really start helping with the end consumer with that data too. So
Yeah,
I got all excited.
I call you Kathryn the AI bot because you were AI before AI was even discussed.
I'm not very artificial. I think we need to have a different bot.
No, but you're very data driven, and I love that about you.
Yeah.
And so I love that story, and I'm going to reference that in the next slide too. But real quickly on this is another example of a big company was kind of complacent in how they were uh, distributing out the consoles for Xbox. As soon as they started looking at buying behavior, certainly some marketer in some meeting at Microsoft raised his hand or her hand and said, "Why don't we bundle the games or the live pass with the console?" And they did this test, and as soon as they started bundling specific game sets like sports or Minecraft or some type of robotics type gamification into the console or with the console purchase, in many cases they saw sales increase from 30 to 100%. So it's just another psychological way to look at configuring and bundling things. And I thought this was relevant in our industry.
Absolutely.
Um,
You
it's
know,
real.
we,
It's interesting, Kathryn. I'll just see one thing that you highlighted. When you look at, depending who you ask, the aftermarket business, accessory business is about a $40 billion business. Only 5% of that gets captured at the dealership. That means the dealers are not surfacing in either conversation or virtually the ability for consumers to even know what they have. And I love your example. I'm going to always use your reference because when talking to dealers, it's so important for them to understand the data shows what the customers want and are excited about. And if you can force that conversation with the dealer and have that lead being submitted to say the customer wants to talk to us about the Ford F-150 with the side steps or the remote starter kit or the tonneau cover, right? That's how we get the dealers to participate more into this world.
and I'm thinking beyond that. It's like there's when you look, I'm going to use the complicated word again, right? It's
Yeah.
complicated understanding the use case and the vocational
Mhm.
application.
Yeah.
It's the supply chain side is complicated. The OEM is experts at their product. The
Mhm.
upfitter manufacturer is experts at their product. The actual upfitter, either the distributor or they're just doing the upfits, they're experts at what the configuration needs to be and what accessories are commonly purchased by that particular vocation.
Mhm.
The dealer is the contact. So how do we make sure that all this expertise comes into a place that it's available to the customer? And of course, the other part of that is, and we're going to talk about this, is that, this expanding of what else is being delivered to that customer. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Yeah, I love what your new company is doing around the actual practical application of AI and large language, right? We've done some of that we've used it for interpreting the phone calls and some things along that. We're starting to use it a little bit more, but I see that's a big opportunity to help with that, bringing all the complication together in a way that makes it human. It's
Yeah.
funny, because that's really
Yeah.
what AI is. I see AI for is it's
Yeah.
to help us as a human, have interaction with people and companies that has the value.
That's right. Yeah, I can't say anything more to expound on that. That's perfectly stated. And if you think about your example with the one dealer and the Ford dealer, and you extrapolate that to thousands of dealers and have that data, you can really do some really cool stuff in this industry. And not only cool, but also effective.
I'm going to do it. I'm going to show the video you showed
Oh
me
yeah.
right now.
Okay.
So everybody, this is something that Eccentric has done, correct? For
Correct. Yep.
Tata
For
Motors.
Tata. Yep.
And what I love that's happening here is it's really helping the customer journey, right? It's helping them walk through what are they, it's not like you have to know the model number. You need to talk about which are the criteria that you need, right? To be able to make your job work. And then once you've gone through a quick selection process, then you get to do a really cool thing here, which is, bam, you get to actually look at it and play around with it. Now, you know, we in the US, we have an extremely fragmented and complex supply chain on the upfit side, right?
Yep.
So this is a large journey forward to get to this place, but that journey of selecting things, I think we're really close there. And you know, there is some opportunity also for on the chassis side for sure. As we can see the body side, to be able to and continue to provide that information. I think that we are going to go back. Oh, look at that, worked fine, didn't it? Everybody
Yeah.
saw that. We were worried about that, everybody. So I think that, you know, the commercial vehicle market will have the kind of aggregated data to help do this, to help the customers be able to match their use case before they buy. So
You're spot on. We are bringing that technology that you just saw to the US. In fact, I can't announce the OEM, but we are launching not a commercial vehicle OEM yet, but we are going to launch with one of the OEMs that specific type choose your own adventure, configure the vehicle, and then you get to visually see in a 3D way how that will potentially look. I mentioned this to you before this call, Kathryn, too. You learned so much in your focus groups with dealers. I had the luxury of sitting in your dealer meeting at Work Truck Week last or 2 months ago, and last month was it? Yeah, and the dealers will just tell you what they need, what they're seeing, right? One mentioned they want to see sizing and specifications around measurements because their customers put these trucks in garages and they need to make sure they fit the height and the width and all this. And so visualizing this stuff and then adding some of those layers of data, then that buyer now can be very confident in ordering that specific vehicle because they now have seen it and know the exact specifications. So gosh,
absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're finding partners too. Like, for example, we have a partner on transport exactly because of that, because you know,
Cool.
we actually have an API on our vehicle detail page with Crestline Transportation because they understand commercial vehicles and they get the data out of our vehicle detail page that helps them know ahead of time when they make a quote, which is a very quick quote, but they know what that, because it can be different. There's been some really bad historic stories about people didn't think through, oh my God,
Right.
this is taller than the normal transport. Now what
Yeah.
are we going to do? Right? I don't
Yeah.
want to tell those stories today. I think of it as kind of matchmaking. I think,
Swipe left, swipe right.
yeah, and I think that one of the things that actually started me down the path of Work Truck Solutions was hearing from the founder of the National Ford Truck Club, who was selling in a Ford dealership that in 2009, he wasn't going to have inventory in stock, right? I mean, it was just a bad time for
Yeah.
those of you that are really young. Just so you know, it was a tough time for. There were a lot of businesses that went out of business. There was a lot of pressures on the, and we cycle. We're looking at things that are happening now that may really impact our economy, or we don't know, is it going to be better or worse or whatever. But we always cycle through things, right? And you just have to be able to do that and kind of predict a little bit. But he mentioned that he was have to get on the phone and start calling other dealers to try and find a vehicle for a customer that walked on the lot. And that was kind of the trigger, and I'm like, wait a minute, can't you just go online and search? It was Boolean search back at that time, and I was pretty good at it. And then it turned out, no, you couldn't. And that's because nobody kept the data, nobody was keeping track of it. And, I was teaching marketing at Chico State at the time, and you just can't, if you don't know what the product is that you're selling, you don't have a snowball's chance, right, of knowing your customer. And back to what you're saying, this is all about the customer, right, Greg?
It is. It's the buyer and the behavior by the buyer. Those four pillars that you showed before never change, but what does change is ways you can engage with them and intersect. And obviously, the digital world now is where we're at. The reality is, I was in a mall last week and it was empty because people are shopping online. And
walkers, huh?
a few, yeah, including myself. I'm now that guy. Um, but no,
Well,
I
we
think
were looking up. We got, just so you guys know, when Greg and I talk, we get off on a lot of wild hairs, and we were talking about that and about how this is really the future, right? We still have to build some of this, but we know where we're going. And so today we looked up, the kind of percentages of the different generational demographics, right? And I guess a couple of years ago, the boomers got passed by the millennials. So now 36% of the workforce is millennials. And 19% is the Gen X. And that's coming up. 6% is Z, and boomers are going out, of course. We tried to before, and with the economy, it made it hard to actually leave. But the point being, it's happening, and it's by 2040, everybody that's in the workforce is going to be, people that have been born with, and how many people have I heard that have little kids now that know how to swipe and do things that I just don't feel I'm not really good at, And so the expectation, I guess, the point I'm making, Greg, is it's not just the expectation, it's this, it has to be. It has to be. And we have to start now, because this is complicated. This is a complicated space.
Yeah. Yeah, I have two teenage daughters, 4 years apart. They do things very different just by the generational, or I guess those 4 years difference. They process information online different. They they drive me crazy in different ways. But it's amazing. I think to your point, we bucket them in millennial, Gen Z, Gen X, which I'm a part of. But the reality is you've got to stay in tune with these people, because once one generation moves out, another one comes in, and they have different motivations and ways of going about things. So,
well, I think this could be exciting. I go to the Work Truck Week every year, of course, and I go to, in the fall, they have an executive summit, and a lot of that is talking about workforce and how,
oh yeah,
we have a very kind of misunderstood or not very sexy industry. I mean, I love it because this is the hardworking, salt of the earth backbone of our economy,
right.
And we actually hear more about it now because of being essential businesses during the pandemic, and then, things happening that the blue collar, just we need to support and be excited about having people go into those careers, right? But the careers are different. It's not like everything is computerized now. It's like if you're going to work on a car, it's not the same. If you're going to, figure out how to fix my house because I'm having some kind of a problem, there's it's all different. And
Yeah.
it's exciting, and we need to make it exciting for young folks. And Greg, as always, we could just keep talking. I'm sorry. Quick, say goodbye.
I will see you soon. Nice seeing you.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.